Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is going to be a just chatting segment. I've got a lot of mice to go over on my right side, some pretty solid mice to go over on my right side, but I do want to also throw in the segment where my head is, where my preferences are. I am now done with my rank grind in Apex in this current season, and I do want to talk about what I felt like I was playing my best on and what my main mice are right now. I think it's really important for all reviewers to be transparent because we get so many products, and some of these products are very good in the hand. There's less and less to kind of critique in the mouse market right now. I think it really boils down to how things are transforming into an elevated gaming experience for my performance. Now, the mouse that I found myself playing noticeably better on, and I wanted to make sure it was not just a honeymoon phase, but the Pulsar x2f, I think, is the mouse that needs to have everyone's attention. When I always tested fingertip mice in the past, although they felt really good, there's always just been a little bit of an issue or something that just didn't feel right if the mice did have side buttons or they just did not have side buttons. The X2F, I think, is the first fingertip mouse that really makes it feel as though, at least with your thumb positioning, that you are using a full-size, full-length mouse. These side buttons work absolutely perfectly. I honestly think that they could have skipped the beta test on this mouse. It is in such a perfect condition already. I would not change anything with respect to the shape, and in terms of the bottom of the mouse, I think it's structured fine to have those segmented sections for the dots. Now, I do think that the decision for the switches, honestly, I wouldn't change it. I think that the extra actuation force here over Omron Opticals actually does feel fantastic because for a fingertip mouse, I don't want to get into this rhythm or accidental actuation of mouse 1 and mouse 2. I think the extra stability there with the actuation force tied with these switches, as well as the additional weight for the small size, actually does add a significant level of stability. I do think that they could maybe do away with 5 or so grams on this mouse, but I don't know that I would want this thing to go an extra 10 grams lighter. I would maybe shave off 5 to 8 grams at a maximum. That's my preferences. I think the extra stability here with the weight and perfect weight balance would be perfect in that region, or as it is right now. There's really nothing I don't like about the X2F, and again, if it released in this format, it would probably still be my main choice for a performer right now. The reason why I think I'm performing so good on the mouse, and I've kind of touched upon it in the prior video for the X2F, but being forced into a fingertip grip and not having the ability to go and transition to a hybrid grip locks me into the same consistent grip every time, every second that I am using the mouse, and it just makes my tracking feel effortless, makes my tracking feel flawless, and my flicks are that much better as well. The amount of inner hand maneuverability that we consistently talk about on this channel, you will not find better on the market for a fingertip mouse, in my personal opinion, out of what I've seen and out of what I've tried. The build integrity and the feel of the mouse are impeccable. Now, separate and apart from the X2F, the things I found myself playing the most on are the Vaxi E1 for Ergo, when I wanted to get a little bit of a swap from simply a fingertip or symmetrical mouse. And for symmetrical full-size mice, the thing I was playing the most on is the Ninjutsu Vaxi Sora. So impressive to say that Vaxi has 2 mice out of my top 3 right now in the E1 and the Vaxi Sora. I think they've done an incredible job, and it just goes to show for me that lower weight just isn't the thing that is driving my performance. It really is shape, stability, performance. Vaxi E1, Ninjutsu Sora, Ninjutsu Vaxi Sora, incredible, incredible mice. Now, moving to the new mice that you see here on the right, I do want to get into the Teevolution Terra. This is a new mouse that will be hitting the market. I have no idea when. I don't know what the US price of this mouse will be. I've seen different prices on different areas of websites. But overall, you are getting essentially a clone of the G703. And really, if you are not somebody who likes the G703, or you are somebody who likes already an ergonomic mouse like the E1 or the Pulsar Feynman, you might find yourself being less excited for the Teevolution Terra. Now, Pulsar has already beat them to the market as well with the Pulsar X3, so if you've already purchased one of those, maybe you're not really looking at the Terra. What I will say, though, is that they have done a good job in making this feel like a structurally sound mouse that does not have any flex anywhere on the shell. They are using a FE optical switch, and the switches do feel good. In my time on the mouse, my experience with the mouse, the only thing I would say is that the plastic on mouse 1 and mouse 2 is actually quite wide. It's quite long, and in different areas of mouse 1 and mouse 2, when I hit it closer to the scroll wheel accidentally, it does feel a little bit more hollow as opposed to hitting the switches dead on mouse 1 and mouse 2. In terms of the coating, though, I would say that it is very close to the feeling of Lamzu mice, if you are familiar, but it does stay dry. The only thing would be on this black copy, it is kind of a oil and fingerprint magnet, just like some Lamzu mice. The side buttons are quite large. It is fairly typical to some of the older ergonomic mice in terms of the size of the side buttons. But I do find these side buttons to be very functional with little sway outward diagonally when hitting it towards the back, and just a bit of pre-travel and a bit of post-travel. I will say, though, that because of the size of mouse 4 and mouse 5, they do feel a little bit more hollow than some mice with smaller side buttons, things that are a little bit more targeted, depending on, again, where you hit mouse 4 or mouse 5. The scroll wheel actually does look fairly typical, similar to what is reminiscent to some old Pulsar mice or even newer Pulsar mice with the black and the white accents. Overall, mouse 3 actually does feel quite good, and I have zero issues with the scroll wheel. So for a G703 clone, it's coming in at around 49 to 51 grams, and it is a 3950 sensor. It's got incredible weight balance. I think there's different versions of the mouse as well, so some versions might be a little bit cheaper. But one thing I will say as well is that this mouse actually does have not only 2.4, but it does have Bluetooth as well, if that's a necessity for you. But when you turn the mouse on, it actually does actuate this dongle here. And this actually does have the most impressive dongle that I have seen to date. The screen is very legible. The screen has all of the information on it that you could possibly need. It is the coolest dongle, and I do wish that other companies would actually implement this in the future. I mean, it shows you the date and time when the mouse is not in motion. When the mouse is in motion and the dongle is connected to the mouse, has that active signal, you can see absolutely everything, including motion sync, your hertz polling rate, your DPI, your liftoff distance, so on and so forth. It is very effective, very clean, and I do like the fact that it does turn into a clock as well when you are not actively moving the mouse. I mean, a really, really nice dongle, and included in the price, you do get also a significant amount of goodies in the box as well, including grips as well as extra skates. In terms of the overall shell design, you know, a lot of these clones that have been coming out from other companies have cutouts or areas on the bottom that are not fully enclosed. This mouse is fully enclosed, as you can see at that weight. So it does have, I think, an impressive build quality, at least for my tester unit that I have here on my desk. So if you're a G703 stan and you are waiting for what might be the best clone, as long as you guys get a build quality that is similar to this one, might be the best clone of the G703 that you can buy. As long as this mouse is affordable, I do think that it would be recommendable, again, if this is where you are in your ergonomic search. Now, the Cloud XS kind of falls into a similar position for me shape-wise. The shape just doesn't really work for me, but it feels like a awesome mouse. The Cloud XS almost feels like a mini XM2 or a mini of the, obviously, the Cloud from Waizowl. It does have a low click height that you can see here towards the front of the mouse, very, very low. And the mouse does feel super small and super tiny in terms of grip width as well as length. Now, for me, I transition into a fingertip grip on this mouse, but because it does kind of obviously fall more elongated in length than something like the X2f, and because it is somewhat similar in the ridges like in XM2 on the side of the mouse, the only issue I have on this particular mouse is as I'm fingertipping, when I am getting a little bit more tense in game, the areas of my fingers, both my pinky finger and my ring finger, dig into the ridges on the side of the mouse. So something that you should be concerned about if you have larger hands, but the mouse does feel performance-wise fantastic. It comes with a good-looking dongle that matches the color, the cherry red of the mouse, and it does have an RGB ring around the dongle as well. 3950 sensor, a lightweight. It has good switches and implementation on mouse 1 and mouse 2. The only thing I would point out as well is that the side buttons are quite tiny. They're thin. I don't necessarily like the side button implementation here, but I do have plenty of room for my thumb to rest under the side buttons, despite how small the mouse is. I would just say that I wish these side buttons were kind of a different size or different shape, maybe stuck out from the shell a little bit more. And these side buttons aren't quite as crisp on my copy as I would like. But in terms of like actual build quality, pre and post travel, there's a bit of pre travel, not a lot of post travel. Like my side buttons are not traveling into the inside of my mouse. So overall, Waizowl is actually turning into one of my favorite new brands out of China, just from the designs, the different colors, the fact that they're trying new shapes. And this is definitely a new shape right here in my hand. And I do think it works. Again, I think my hands are just too big for it, causing my ring finger a little bit of pain and struggle on the right side of the mouse. So if you were kind of looking for something that's getting high in the back, but the hump is more mid-centric, quite small with low click height, this thing actually just does feel super, super aggressive in the hand with a nice thumb rest here, an ergonomic curve on the thumb side, a ergonomic curve on the right side, just one inhibited again by that high pillar here on the side of the mouse, and overall just an aggressive, small feeling mouse that I think a lot of people would really enjoy. I think they've done a nice job, and again, something that feels new to me shape-wise on the small mouse market. Now, getting into the Mchose G7 Pro, this just isn't a mouse that I would technically probably ever find myself using. This is just not where I am on the mouse journey right now. This is essentially the closest clone that I think you'd probably get in a lightweight 3395 format of the Razer Basilisk. Like, the mouse does feel great, the switches feel good, the weight feels perfectly weight balanced in the G7 Pro, it feels light, and the weight is very well distributed throughout this long of a shell. The side buttons just feel super goofy to me. They stick out a little bit too far, so kind of the opposite of the Waizowl Cloud XS, and the pre-travel is definitely the most out of everything on the table. The post-travel, however, is not that bad. The issue with the side buttons, however, is there's just a lot of movement when you are just moving your finger over mouse 4 and mouse 5. The plastic just moves a little bit too much for me. Overall build integrity, however, the shell is very, very strong, very sturdy, and I did not have any issue with the main buttons. And you can actually see here the way that the plastic is positioned and designed. It really just has little room for flex, wiggle, and side play. No switch grind, really no issues whatsoever. Default skates were rather mediocre. But overall, like, if you are somebody who loves having that little finger ledge there for your thumb on the left side, and you really like the Basilisk shape, if you are somebody who needs to go lightweight, this is certainly an option for you. Now, for full transparency, full disclosure, I would not be using the 3 mice that I just went over. And again, it's because the shape is just a little bit too small for me for my hands on the Cloud XS. I'm not somebody who likes that Basilisk shape. And as far as the G7 Pro, or excuse me, as far as the Teevolution Terra, the G703 is just something that I really, really liked back in the day, but we've had a few iterations of it now on the market, and we've had a lot of new ergonomic mice. Like, we've been begging for a G703 clone, lightweight, with upgraded internals, but so many ergonomic mice have hit the market now that I am just so attached to and in love with, like the Vaxi E1, that it's just hard for me to go into this much more bulbous, much more hand-filling shape that makes your hand just feel like it is being consumed by the mouse itself. With the Vaxi E1, I just get that fingertip engagement. I get that extra inner hand maneuverability while still feeling like I'm on a full-sized ergonomic mouse. And last but not least, I do have the NZXT Lift. I will show you guys the internals on the bottom of the screen here. But this is probably one of the most odd shapes and shape decisions that I've seen hit the market in a while. Like, the front top side of the mouse seems like it could potentially work, but then you get from the bottom side and you can see there's really no curvature inwards on the side of the mouse at all. Super, super flat from the bottom of the base all the way to the front of the mouse. But where the grip is on the left side of the mouse, and these grips do not feel good to me at all, and actually do become quite moist when you start playing and your room starts getting pretty hot. But it does curve out a little bit. So as my thumb rests on the mouse, instead of feeling like it has some ergonomic curvature leading into mouse 4 and mouse 5, it just feels like my thumb is pointing away from mouse 4 and mouse 5, and it just feels very awkward. On the right side of the mouse, it is okay. You do get a bit of that curvature outward to rest your ring and pinky finger on, as the rest of the mouse from the base just stays fairly flat to the top of the mouse. But overall, like, the switches just don't feel good. They feel super, super dense and heavy. They feel as though they just rebound a little bit too much. And the plastic here in general, just the texture of the mouse, it feels like an older mouse, like back when the Viper first dropped from Razer. Overall, just a lot not to like about how cheap the mouse feels in general. I could perform on this mouse okay. It's just not something that I would ever pick up and say, this is a shape for me. It would not be something that would fall into my top 20 mice, and certainly I think that I just don't really need to waste much more in my general impressions about the mouse. I think, again, the switches just don't feel good. Side buttons don't feel good. Scroll wheel, and the scroll wheel actually feels okay, but mouse 3 is super dense and tight as well. It's almost like mouse 3 is, the scroll wheel is just like too close to the button, so there's not quite a lot of travel to get to that button. And then it's just very, very firm. So you just feel as though you're pushing that down into a brick wall, and it's just not a satisfying experience. So the NZXT Lift, I think they sell it at Best Buy, but this would not be something that you will see me recommend on this channel. And again, it boils down to the shape. So where I'm at shape-wise, my top ergonomic would be the Feynman or the E1. I'm using the E1 because I'm in love with the color of the Vaxi. So I've literally stuck with it for that very inconsequential reason. I do also still like the Pulsar x2h, the Pulsar Crazy Light. The Pulsar x2f is what I am dumping a majority of my time into right now. The Ninjutsu Vaxi Sora, and I still rock with the G Pro Superlight Dex and the G Pro Superlight 2. So I've really, right now, I'm like locked into 3 or so companies, but primarily Vaxi and Pulsar. I would say also Endgame Gear has done an incredible job for me. I think their upgraded renditions of their wireless mice, the XM2, the OP1, I think Endgame Gear is doing a really great job. And I am looking forward to see what they produce in the future as well. I think those right now are like my top 4 options: Pulsar, Vaxi, Logitech, and Endgame Gear. So guys, that is going to be it for this one. I hope it helped. If it did, please leave a sub to the channel. See you guys in the next review. Peace.